I got massage therapy canceled letter too.
This meeting's really exciting.
So you wait.
Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Thompson?
Here.
Councilmember President?
Here.
Councilmember Spurlock?
Here.
Councilmember Craig?
Here.
Mayor Rich?
Here. Flag salute, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, do I have a motion for approval of the agenda?
I need to make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank
I'll second that.
So first and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, approved. Next, approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of December 7th, 2017.
Second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Mr. Spurlock, all in favor?
Aye.
Approved, thank you. No presentation on the committee reports. Economic development and tourism, I'll report on that. Right now, we have things pending, obviously, as always, with the Travelers Hotel and the House of Glass, and nothing really to report on that. But the one thing that we are actively pursuing right now is the development of the airport property, the property east of the airport, into some sort of industrial park. And we already have, Mr. Dinges is already talking with a couple of people that might be willing to finance it. People that if they did come in and finance it for warehousing space and et cetera, they would put in the roads and everything else that needed to be done as part of the investment in the development, and the city would be able to receive revenue in a number of different ways. So that's what we're looking at right now. There's 78.4 acres up there, which we think about 50 acres of it might be able to be developed. And so that's what we're exploring right now. We have a topographical map we've been looking at, and we're in general hoping this might be something really big down the line, and we're pursuing it aggressively. So that's all we have right now from that committee. Finance committee, I guess you're getting ready to meet, is that right?
I'll add that we're looking at setting up a meeting, I think the first Friday of January was out there. Haven't gone back to confirm, but that's what we're looking at.
Okay, great, thank you.
I hadn't heard that date yet. Is that the Friday the 5th?
I thought it was the 4th, since we canceled our.
It looks like the 5th.
Oh,
Yeah.
Friday the 5th.
I'm not available most of the day that day, during the day.
Okay. Well, yeah, I've been trying to schedule a date for everyone, for the finance committee members to meet. Because of the holidays,
But I thought we all the evenings, all the back and forth, it was ready for the 4th, since we canceled the council meeting.
oh, that's right, the 4th.
I'm available on the 4th.
Okay, looks like we'll have it on the 4th.
Okay, so finance committee meeting on the 4th of January, all those interested. I would encourage people as we go through this process that it's the first time where we're trying to do it from start to finish the right way. If you want to be involved, now's the time to catch a hold of the train, and looking forward to the work they're going to be doing in the new year.
Mr. Mayor, may I
Yes.
just ask what time?
Jimmer, is it 5?
No, we had scheduled it.
Okay, 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
Okay, which
Yeah.
is Bryce?
That works for me, thank you.
4 o'clock, January 4th, here in the council chamber, finance committee meeting. Thank you.
We're gonna
Public
meet
facilities
here.
and services.
Have not met since I.
Okay. Airport. Mark, did you want to say anything? I've got some thoughts, but did you want to?
I'll let you, go ahead.
Okay, basically what we're doing right now is we're looking at the budget, trying to find a way to be able to do what we need to do without impacting the general fund. So one of the things we found is that the good news out of the fires in the region is that we've got how much, 7,500 or 8,000?
Yeah.
Roughly around $8,000 extra to the airport because of the contract we worked out with the Forest Service for support during air operations. And so that definitely came in to help. We've also found ways, and we're working on ways of using the work that's already in the budget for the airport manager, which is the city manager, and perhaps even Public Works, to be able to be used as in-kind donations to cover the planning that we would look at doing next year. So we'll be looking at that down the line, and our goal is to try and find a way as best we can to get revenue neutral for the airport for the budget this year. That's what we're working towards. Anything else you'd like to add, Mark?
No,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I have a
Yes.
question. I'm just wondering if, do we have a yearly contract with Carol Ford? So is that, does she participate in each meeting, or is it just sort of as needed?
She calls in each meeting.
yeah.
Okay, and so is she the person who's, basically, we're asking that specific question about or does she have to then go to the FAA to ask about whether or not we do the in-kind donation?
Right, what we basically have, and I also need to mention that Heath Hildebrand from Dyer and Associates, Dyer.
Got it.
Dyer and Associates has been really helpful between Carol and Heath. They've been powwowing, trying to come up with every way they can to be able to put together a mix of in-kind payments so that we wouldn't have to put out anything for this year's FAA matching. And so she participates in that, and what she wants us to do, and she's been working with Pam and with Mark, is to come up with the numbers as specifically as we can, how much support can realistically be put under the contract, so that we're looking at, how much was it that you would be able to put aside?
About 8,000.
So the work, for instance, it's already in the budget to handle Mark, 8,000 of that we think can be handled.
I'm
We're
just
looking at
wondering,
around 12,000 for this year.
I just want to know when we can expect to go from we think to we know.
January.
Okay,
We
thank
should have
you.
already had something in, but we're telling them we need to put this together. We'll talk to them early January,
Okay.
let people know.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a question first?
Sure.
I just want clarification. Which grant are we talking about?
We're talking about the next fiscal year grant, the grant that we need to continue to move forward.
It's a $250,000 that the airport gets each year for grant funds.
150.
Is it 150?
Yeah,
150.
I didn't know we had to have matching funds for that.
It's when you use that money to go towards a project. So Carol Ford's time is paid through that grant fund for her time. We're looking
I think I
at,
need to have a little bit more clarification then.
So I can explain a little bit more, Mari. So basically.
Yeah, you can do it.
There.
A little bit later.
Okay.
I'm just, I thought the 150,000 was something we did, came to us without matching funds. So.
it does, but that money is slated for projects. And right now we just finished the pavement management plan, and we're still in the midst of the airport layout plan.
Right.
So a portion of that money is going towards that, and some of her time we spent for that. And what we're looking at is moving forward in an engineering plan for the pavement runway. And that's what we're looking at. How are we going to cover our match if we move forward with that?
Right, but that's not a grant that we are committed to.
Not yet. But before we try to commit, we're looking to see how to fund it without just.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Next, emergency plan task force, Mark.
We have the FEMA meeting in January, up in the couple of going to that.
Great.
Hopefully we're
16th.
Yeah, January 16th, and until we get the template, nothing is going to happen.
Okay, thank you. Next then, the Veterans Memorial. Nothing going on in that
Report yet?
Okay. Mossbury Trail.
I heard back from, I think I maybe had mentioned this briefly at the visioning meeting, that I heard back from Francisco, the UP folks in Roseville would like a little bit more information before they pass the proposal on to Omaha. So we're working with the engineering team in Roseville to provide a bit more clarification. I've been in contact with the Mount Shasta Trails Association, Joe Worth, and Tom Hesseldens about exactly how to go about doing that work. It looks, emails go back and forth. I don't think Trails Association has 100% voted to commit to doing this yet, but I believe that their intention is to pay for the additional engineering work that UP is requesting through the money that's already been donated, but they want to make sure that they have board approval to allocate those funds. So still no cost to the city or anything. Essentially what they want is to, the proposal that we gave them lays everything out and it has a bunch of maps, but they would like more, they basically want 30% engineering on it. So I get, I'm gonna ask our engineering friends exactly what that means, but I think that just means an engineering plan that's to 30% fidelity rather than 100%. And so I think what we provided them was more like a plan for that rather than engineering. So the Trails Association is working to prepare that, and we will get that to them as soon as possible. Now it shouldn't affect our timeline, so still moving forward.
What's your dream date?
The dream date is summer, but that's all contingent upon a bunch of things. You know, that's contingent upon UP's approval of the proposal, someone's willingness to fund the other 50% of the construction work. But we have some very solid leads to get that done. The amount of money that we were able to raise so far was just so crucial in getting us to a point where it's like, it's a real project and we're really doing it. So usually that's the hurdle you have to get over to get the next chunk of money. So we're looking at McConnell and Ford and a bunch of different community organizations, funding organizations that can help us get there.
You better have bullets in your gun if you want to shoot something.
We're not
bullets.
We're almost there.
And to remind the public, we do have, what you're talking about in terms of funding is, I believe, a single $250,000 donation, is that correct?
We've raised $275,000. I believe that's right. The vast majority of which was from one anonymous donor, and the rest is we'll see. We really aren't going after the rest until we know we have an approval, and that's committed money. The 275 is committed money, but they've only spent a little bit of it on some of the preliminary engineering, early environmental stuff, and surveying, things like that, to put together the proposal that you guys have already seen. So hopefully that, with this additional, a little bit more clarity on some of the specific engineering, they just wanted to know, like, okay, you're proposing to put in a bridge, you know, where exactly are the footings of this bridge gonna go, and we want those engineering plans to 30%. Like, you know, I'm not an engineer, I don't exactly know what that means, but the engineers who they're hiring do, so that's good.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Encouraging. Broadband, no movement on broadband.
No, sir.
And beautification, anything to report? I know you're not meeting for a while.
Not meeting till
Well,
after.
we're not meeting until March.
Right.
Marijuana task force.
We met on Tuesday night and continued our discussion of several topics. I think we're calling this the Cannabis Task Force now, by the way. Maybe we'll get that changed at some point.
Not the capital.
No. Sometimes it gets close to that, but not too bad.
We haven't eaten anybody yet.
Which is
Yet.
Yet. We, basically, we got through most of our discussion around zoning with regard to cultivation, retail sales, and manufacturing. At our next meeting, we're gonna look at, our next meeting, which is in 3 weeks from Tuesday.
What date is that?
I think it's the 19th, but I'm not sure. 9th? January 9th?
January 9th, next Cannabis Task Force meeting.
That's right. And those are at 5:30 here in this room. Everyone's welcome to come. We're gonna talk about basically we just put all the remaining topics on the agenda so that we can get to whatever we want to get to. The general overarching strategy at this point is to, instead of bringing back our recommendations piecemeal to the council and trying to do multiple amendments to the ordinance that we've already passed, to instead bring them as one amendment. So the things that we banned in the first ordinance, which was everything outside of cultivation and retail sales, we'll be readdressing those topics. So that's manufacturing, testing, distribution, transportation, and nurseries.
How about the application process?
That's another thing that we are working on. It's not on the agenda for our next meeting, but it's already been on one of our agendas, and we have looked through some applications. We're not really there yet. it's gonna be probably 1 to 2 to 3, maybe more months before we're totally ready to like implement this thing. And I think even that is ahead of what a lot of other cities are doing. They've either banned it so they don't have to deal with it at all, but the ones that are trying to deal with it are finding that it's a slow process, especially since we're trying to do this on the cheap, where we haven't hired extra consultants. We obviously understand the financial position of the city and don't want to put any additional burden on it. So using a little bit of legal dollars in John Kinney's time, but all of that's recoupable, I should say, through the licensing fees. So that's a big part of it. We need to actually have a financial analysis of what the regulatory burden is going to be and what the license fees are going to need to be in order to pay back our time and what an appropriate license fee is. And that doesn't even get into the issues of taxation and all of that. So there's still lots to do, but the task force is moving along, and we've had some really good meetings lately that have been very productive. So I'm proud of the work that they've done.
Thank you. Ms. Shonda, would you like to add anything?
No, I think Bryce was pretty thorough.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's it for that. We're not going to open the meeting for public comment.
We're not.
Wait, what?
What did you
Announcements
say?
and public comment.
Oh, did you say we're now or we're
Yeah.
not? Oh, okay.
I heard
I
now.
heard we're not.
I heard
sorry.
now.
Now,
Okay.
we are now opening the podium for public comment.
That's what my agenda says too.
Yeah.
Now.
No public comments. Okay, I close the podium for public comment. Next, we move on to announcements and reports from council and staff. Mr. Branning, we'll start off with you today.
Just say Merry Christmas. Looking forward to our first Christmas here in Dunsmuir.
Great. When do we look at having our next vision? Have you thought about the next vision meeting we're going to
We
have?
did set a date. Let me see if I have it on. 17. Yeah, at 5 p.m. Currently, it's going to be here. We're looking at seeing if we can get into the community center. We had such a good turnout. It'd be a little easier for us to get in there and not have to rearrange everything, but we're working on that. So right here is 17th at 5 o'clock, unless we move to the community center.
I thought it was nice and cozy.
It was a little cozy, unless you need to go to the bathroom on this side.
The only question I have is, have we decided we're not going to have a meeting on the 4th?
Yes, and one of the things on the agenda, the consent, has to do with the regular schedule of city council meetings, and that meeting has been Xed out.
Okay. The only reason I'm wondering is we're not going to have another council meeting before the 17th, then, right?
Right.
Okay, so everyone, this is your time to realize the 17th for our next vision and try and get the word out as much as possible. And I would encourage everybody to show up, even if you weren't there for the first one. We have a lot of good information that was laid out for that. And that's fertile set of dreams and visions that we can now work to put into a vision statement and a mission statement. So that is still ahead of us, still an opportunity for everyone to participate. So I encourage you to come on the 17th. Ms. Shonda, your turn. Anything from you?
Well, Merry Christmas to everybody.
Okay.
I know a lot of people were expecting the quite cracky stuff on the ground, but I sure am not.
Mr. Geisler.
I got lots. First of all, I'd like to welcome back my buddy Josh and thank him for his hard work, his efforts, and everything he's done down south. You personally helped out a few people down there, so I'm glad you're back. I'm glad you're safe. You look good. Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
I'd like to announce, first I'd like to thank Yolanda Kruger for all her hard work. She put together this professionals, the professionals group. That's a lot of the store owners in town. And they put out a contest this year, and it was for the best business Christmas lights. And this is a little thing from Harry and David's. And tonight at the Christmas party, the winner was announced. And the winner is Hardy's Antiques. He decorated his store with the paper and like old school, looked pretty cool. So he wanted hands down, and then his house, little Santa on the Hardy, that was like icing on the cake. So he goes above and beyond. So I'm proud to announce that Hardy's Antiques won the Christmas Lights Award. So
I think they also, didn't they also win the ugly sweater contest? I mean, they were decked out at the meeting Tuesday.
at the awards dinner, I thought I wanted to commend everybody that put on the chamber that put on the awards dinner. And I'd like to congratulate Tony from Dunsmuir Tire, Ron from the hardware store, and Chris Langston from the church. They are all honor board recipients, and I thought that it was a really nice, it was a nice banquet, nice function. I want to do a thank you to Mike Wright and the choir they put together the other night. It was outstanding. I don't know if you guys went, but if you didn't, you know you missed something. Our local people got some talent. They sang from the heart, and it was absolutely amazing. I was honored to be there, and I look forward to next year. Who knows, I might be on that choir next year. It looked like they were having a pretty good time. There's one thing that, there's been a little rumor about Sam Lanier and his efforts. And I just want to do a shout out to Sam Lanier that this council member is behind him in all his efforts and anything that he's trying to pursue. So let that be known. I would like to have something put on, maybe not the next, but in the future agendas. We've got some things we're working through with the cannabis ordinance and everything, but come February, March, I want 1727 back on this agenda. There are people that are wanting to do something with it, and there's money for to bring back to life. But as I'm understanding, it needs to be out of jail, cut the trees down, let people see it, and let them get on it, just like they do at Railroad Park, so it's part of our history, you can touch it. So that's something that I would like to be put on the agenda, future agendas. And last but not least, from Karen and myself, we'd like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. So thank you, Mary.
Thank you. Mr. Spurlock, welcome back.
Thank you.
Before you give your report, could you give everyone a look at this year's festive decorations?
Festive decoration.
In other words, show off the suit.
Stand up.
Display the shoes.
Good glasses, good
Tradition.
glasses.
I bought these as part of the tribute to the trees. There was a 60s party, so I had an outfit for that too, and this was part of that. I thought it really completed the setup here. But
Thank you.
yeah, certainly. First big one, obviously, is about the fire. This is kind of a unique opportunity that we've seen through all summer. We have fires up in Happy Camp. Previously, we had the fire in the week. And the state has a wonderful system put in place, mutual aid through the Office of Emergency Services. And when everyone in the state came and ran and helped us up in Weed and Happy Camp, and even our fire this year, this was kind of an opportunity that I saw that we could go help our neighbors for helping us. So I'm happy that I could be a part of that. And
Who all was there, Josh? From your group,
we had Chief Padilla. We went as representatives for the Castel portion of the fire department. 2 firefighters, myself, Brian Taylor, and Brady Carlson as well. And then we had other fire departments from Mount Shasta, Lake Shastina, Etna, and Fort Jones as part of our strike team as well. And we spent 14 days down there basically assisting and setting some fires to back burn up and stop it, putting out some other fires, and basically just watching homes and making sure it was kept safe. So very successful, and happy to return the favor to our neighbors as well.
Thank you, sir.
You're my hero.
With that, second item I have is, obviously in my absence, there's been a lot of great work put together by the Moscow Committee, Marijuana Committee. Everyone else has been involved. I'm sorry, the Cannabis Committee. And I just want to personally say thank you for picking up my slack in my absence, and you guys are doing a fantastic job. So I think you guys deserve some recommendation for that. And finally, Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Mr. Craig?
Nothing for me, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, one last item. Congratulations to the new mayor, Mayor Pro Tem. Happy to see the torch being passed down the council as well. So I look forward to working with you guys.
Thank you, sir.
It's nice having a seat occupied, Josh.
That's right. From my standpoint, I would just like to kind of look back on the year. It'll be our last meeting of the year, and I know it started off kind of rough, and then we started picking up speed when we brought Mark Brannigan on board, and I think the thing I think the people of the city can feel most proud of is I've heard a lot of people say that they've noticed that this council gets down to business, knows what they're about, and they seem to care and work at it. So I appreciate the opportunity to serve and work with my fellow council members, to have the support of not only Mr. Brannigan, but the whole staff. And I just wanted to let the people know that your city is nice and fine right now, and you can take the time just to celebrate your Christmas and your New Year and come back, and the city will be there waiting for you again. Thank you. With that in mind,
You're trying to sound like an Allstate commercial. You're in good hands right now.
I'm sorry. My apologies.
okay, fine. Consent agenda.
I make a motion, before I make a motion to adopt the consent agenda, has everybody seen the list of dates? Is
Yes.
everybody okay with them?
Oh, no. Are we going to, is that in consent?
We're talking about dates before we adopt it.
Did we look at the July 5?
July 5? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, if we're going to look at that, we need to pull it out the consent agenda, right?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily, you can amend it.
I looked at the dates, and I'm sure we want to schedule one on July 5.
After the 4th of July, is that why you're saying that?
Yeah. A lot of people go away.
That seems logical to me, then we'd probably cancel that meeting, but we can just do that before,
Yeah, just let it stand, and then when we come to it,
in
just,
case there is something that we did want to meet for, it's good to have it as a standing date.
is that okay with you, Ms.
No,
Moore?
that's fine, that's the only one that popped out.
Okay, in that situation, then I make a motion that we adopt the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
You got a second, all in favor?
Aye.
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 It passes. Okay, moving quickly along, no public hearing. We have no old business. Our first new business is planning commission vacancy. Mr. Brannigan.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. For you tonight is consideration of appointing a citizen onto the planning commission. The planning commission had a vacancy that came about in September as one of the members left the city to move into a different location. And as the requirements stand, that you have to live within the city of Dunsmuir, or 2 seats can be within the city sphere of influence. So Julie did some advertising, and we did a couple rounds of advertising, and we're at the point we're looking at trying to be more aggressive and do some more advertising when we miraculously receive an application or a letter of interest for the planning commission. The person who did apply is here in the audience, Mr. Craig Kay. And I've worked with him on the marijuana task force meeting, and I can tell you he's very prepared and helps out a lot in regards to parcels and planning type of issues. So he's here for you to ask any questions. That's really about it.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions before we ask the candidate to step forward? Okay. Mr. Kay, would you step forward and let us know a little bit about yourself? Thank you for your service on the cannabis task force so far.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. I enjoyed that. I actually was approached by other planning commission members to, if I was interested in that. And my first thought was, well, I can't because I live 5 doors down from the city limits. And then they said, there's 2 seats that you have to be within the sphere. Well, I'm definitely within the sphere and very interested in doing this. Myself, I am the assistant assessor recorder for Siskiyou County. I've been in that office for almost 14 years. I deal a lot with zoning as far as how we assign, use codes and whatnot to zoning and that type of thing. Working with the task force definitely generated a lot more interest in serving the city of Dunsmuir itself. I was born here, I went to school here, graduated high school here, moved back in 2002 and have been here since then. So I'm always interested in serving the public. The marijuana task force has been a great experience for me, a big learning experience too, for all of us, I'm sure they can attest. So this is something I'm interested in doing as a citizen of Dunsmuir, serving the city of Dunsmuir.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from the council members?
I don't have any questions really for Craig other than to just echo what Mark said, and say thank you for all the work that you've done so far on the Cannabis Task Force. I had an opportunity to work alongside Monty with Craig on the Cannabis Task Force, and as Mark said, he's always very prepared and extremely willing to engage in the debate, and I really appreciate that. And I really can't imagine a better candidate coming forward for the Planning Commission, because he does have a unique set of skills working for the county, and I think he'd be a real asset to the Planning Commission. My only question is, it seems like he says, you gotta drive to the county while you're every day for work. We should open up a county satellite office in Dunsmuir, so that we could have some more employment and we would have to drive so far to work.
That'd be nice, but it's not in the budget.
Well, Mr. Kay, thank you. Let me open it up for public comment, and we'll move on with getting you on board. Thank you.
Can I add a comment?
Oh, yeah, well, I was going to wait and get public comment, then we'll come back and let the council comment, unless you had a question.
I don't have a question.
Okay, question?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay, fine.
No public comment?
Anyone like to make a public comment? Public comment closed. Okay, Ms. Shanta.
I want to reiterate the high praise that both Mark have given and Bryce. I'm also on the Cannabis Task Force, and I am enthralled with how well prepared Craig always is. He's got maps. He's ready to answer our questions when it comes to, especially when we're in zoning. And I can't think of anybody better qualified than to sit on the Planning Commission.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
it sounds like we've been blessed. So I'd like to make a motion to appoint Mr. Craig Kay onto the City of Dunsmuir's Planning Commission.
Your second?
Seconded.
Ms. Shanta seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
Congratulations, sir. Welcome to the party.
Yeah.
Party it is.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Craig.
Second Wednesday.
Kind words. Mark, thanks.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I would also like to move that we direct staff to continue the recruitment. There's still one vacancy, correct?
No?
No?
Parks and Rec.
Parks and
Oh,
Rec.
Parks and Rec, okay, sorry.
Okay, so we're fine then with that then, huh?
I think so.
Great. With that in mind, we'll move on to the next item, which is engineering services, water main replacement project. Now wait for the, you ready to go from there?
Yeah, I'll just speak from here. We received word. Here we go. We received word recently that the city has been once again successful in obtaining grant funds from SB 1,
Prop one.
Prop 1, and in the tune of $500,000 for planning and technical assistance. Pace Engineering was, of course, instrumental in assisting us in getting that grant funds. And they put together our water master plan. This is the planning money for the water system. And they're looking, with that water master plan, they're looking at the most critical infrastructure needs that they're going to focus on, and putting together this plan and this environmental and design, so that we can get ready to go out to bid and hopefully get some more grant funds in construction. But for this right now, it's $500,000 in the planning, environmental, and engineering for the critical infrastructure of the water enterprise that needs to be replaced. So we have Keith here from Pace Engineering. who knows a lot more about our system than probably anybody in the city. So he's here to help answer any questions, and we have a presentation here as well that Keith is going to go through real quick.
A recommendation in the future, different color design here.
Yeah, come up here. Just
Kill the lights and
look great on my computer.
Yeah, there we go, how's that?
Yeah, that's better.
Fine, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to kind of give an overview of this grant that we helped the city staff acquire for you guys for your water system. I'm a senior engineer at Pace, and I've been very involved in the improvements in your water system over the last 15, 20 years. I started out, I think my first water project there was the Von Fossen water system, so that goes back to 2004, and North Dunsmuir tank, all of the big water improvements done in the last couple of years, Blackberry Hill area, the North Dunsmuir Avenue, Oak Street, all of that was stuff that I was project manager for. Worked closely with your staff to do these improvements, these infrastructure improvements. While that was going on, other engineers at our in our office with Ron and Dennis helped a lot, develop the master plan, looking at your whole system, identifying deficiencies either in capacity, fire flow, pressure, or age, which all of those are big issues. And so they ended up developing this 2015 water master plan, and they broke down the improvements into 3 categories. And I don't know if quicker anyway, they have current, immediate, and near term. If I recall, it was about $18 to $20 million of improvements. And you added all of those together. The current,
15, I think, was in number 15.
was that all of them together? I don't remember. It didn't have a lot to do with that part of it. I get the end result, and I start going out and designing and trying to get it in the ground in a good manner for you guys. The current were ones that were supposed to be developed right away, and all of those have been installed in different portions of your system that have been improved already. The immediate is what this grant was really focusing on. There were 9 or 10 different projects in the immediate phase. Those were supposed to be, the idea was in 2016, 2017, 2018. That's when those would be being attacked, okay? And then we have the near term. The goal was in that master plan to have all those dealt with by 2022, I think it was. So we found out about this grant opportunity to do the planning, environmental, project management, surveying, determining if there needs to be right-of-way acquisition, and then design. And we could get basically, grant money for the city to do that, and then with that information, be able to give us a big step up on turning around and applying for construction funds. Different agencies require most of that work at some point anyway, so we already haven't done it. We streamlined the process, basically. So we ended up starting this process in March 2016, and I believe it was late October of 2017 when the state revolving fund finally agreed and provided the financial commitment for the grant. So that was, so that you can see, it's not a quick process, unfortunately. We're finally working with the state. I'm involved in several of these with several communities up here in Siskiyou County, and all of them can take a year and a half process, it seems like. So I think both Mark and I kind of covered some of this already. The money for these grants mostly is coming from Proposition 1, which was passed in 2014. The state revolving fund gets funds from the federal government every year as well. But one of the things that makes this Prop 1 money so enticing for you guys is severely disadvantaged communities are first on the priority to get money. but there's only a certain amount of it. So one of the problems is it's very competitive. Yeah, I don't know if I want to see the next slide or not.
All over your head.
Okay. The funds are very competitive to get. And so we've been pushing pretty hard on this. You know, we're working with you guys on the sewer system improvement grant, planning grant right now. We've got several sewer flow meters in your system right now, waiting for rain, if it'll ever show up, to start to identify areas in your sewer system that need to be improved. This is basically the water. The difference here is we've already identified areas that need focus. So we're going to be able to go a little bit quicker with this than we have been able to with the sewer collection system improvements. The state has told us that they're looking at the Prop 1 money in disappearing, going away, all being committed probably by early to mid-summer this coming year. One thing we also know, we've been told there is a proposition on the next ballot in June that will basically be like Prop 1, that will provide another 5 to 8 years of funding for these programs. Prop 1 passed by a significant majority last time, and with our drought situation and all that, the feeling is it's a pretty good chance that they're going to get a new influx of money just about the time they start to run out. And so hopefully we'll be able to just continue when we get done with our stuff here, be able to get right in line, and they'll have the funds available for construction of all of these projects. So the proposed projects are the immediate water mains, and we'll go through, go ahead and hit all of those real quick. There's four kind of areas that were identified in the master plan. And you'll see I have plates that hopefully will show up decent up there on the wall. North Dunsmuir, northern downtown, central Dunsmuir, and southern areas. They are, for a while, like I originally said, they're going to improve a wide range of issues, either capacity issues, pressure issues, fire flow, or just age pipe and constant maintenance and breaking. So with that in mind, you'll see we'll have a kind of a slide showing you the areas we're going to go ahead and start if you approve this today. So that's a little hard to see. That's northern Dunsmuir. The proposal is to do some work around the elementary school to provide better fire flow. Build a new line that comes from the north tank and provide a significant improvement in their pressure and time frame of flow that they would have available. Also up in that area, we've completed the Prospect Avenue portion. We had a really good bids 2 years ago when we did the North Dunsmuir project. We were able to complete Prospect Avenue when we did North Dunsmuir Avenue. And so that's, we don't have to do now, but we have Isbrig and Needham that all needs to be replaced and upsized, okay? And then we also have all the Shasta retreat section. And as you'll see in a minute, we've got a schedule. The biggest unknown in the schedule will be the environmental and permitting because we don't have control over the regulatory agencies. They can take anywhere from 2 months to 2 years. And so that probably will be our biggest delay. The vast majority of this environmentally would be what would be considered a negative declaration. It's going to be in streets, not an issue. We got to go across the bridge over to Shasta Retreat, and we've got to put some lines in near that, I don't even know the name of the creek that goes along kind of north of that road. And so that could cause us some delays. We don't know yet. Once we get approval, we'll have an plan who's been kind of our environmental consultant on a lot of these projects the last 5-6 years. They'll start jumping in on this and get going. Question?
Oh, go ahead, sir. I was just gonna, so it's just the red on this map?
It's just the red. The
Okay.
blue is the existing lines right now.
Okay.
Okay.
So the
And
blue is either, has already been replaced, or the lines that didn't need replacement?
they're not as
They're not
immediate
immediate,
issue.
okay.
Right. Gosh, I designed the Needham replacement 8 years ago, and the city didn't have money to build it. That was before they paved over it. The theory is now the water just leaks down under the street, it doesn't come up because the paving's good enough. It's some of, you guys have seen
That's
some
one
of the
way.
stuff that was taken out of Butterfly Avenue, I think, in the last couple of years and stuff. Some of the old metal pipe in this community is in dire straits. And I know that Needham's that way. I think Shasta Retreat is, but I don't know for sure. I'm guessing it's a very old system as well. And they don't have very low pressure there. They used to get all their water from up on the mountain. And once they shut that off and got supply from the city, you just can't get it over there with the size of the pipes they've got.
As far as Shasta Retreat, there's not going to be any unsnarling or mess down there. You're just talking about a main line through? Because I know each of the houses and the pipes up there crisscross and do all kinds of things. You're not going to straighten that out. You're just doing a straight main?
Well, I don't know what you mean by straightening it out. We're gonna try to abandon every water line that's over there. That's the theory. We'll see how well it goes. We've already talked a lot with Dennis and Ron, and we've got there's a dedicated fire line that's live. They've got their domestic line, the sewer main, and they're all kind of doing this kind of thing.
Right.
And somehow we're gonna have to try to put a new water main in there, abandon the old stuff to get it out of there, because down the road, we're gonna have to go and do some sewer work over it too. And by state code, we gotta have certain separations and all that. So this is kind of the first phase of work up in that area. And it's gonna be a little bit of a challenge, it looks like.
Will that end up with individual meters for each residence up there?
Yes, that's part of why this has to be done. I believe is it 2025, 2022, somewhere in the next 5-6 years, everybody's supposed to be metered on all systems in the state. So that's one of the reasons that we're gonna get to this, and that is one of the issues. According to Ron and Dennis, there are services that go off across lots under a house and then serve 4 more homes. So somehow we're gonna have to be working, we're gonna have to get lines back to these residents. We may end up having to have a loop with a 6-inch main going around, so we don't have services running off across other people's parcels. So that portion probably is the biggest unknown in all of these. And we'll probably put a large portion of our effort, or a larger percentage of our effort into that area. Because I also think that'll be probably the biggest environmental and permit area. Crossing the river will be attached to the bridge, but still crossing the river brings in a whole bunch of different government regulatory agencies we gotta get agreements with and things like that. We've got the railroad. We'll have to warn Jack right into the railroad to not get out into the river. It's going to be a little challenging right there.
So just to clarify, this phase 1 is actually, that includes the work to do all those meters and get that tangled web of Shasta Retreat fixed, or just the mains?
No, the plan is to design the whole thing.
Okay.
The services, the meters, and the mains.
Oh, right, because this is just planning.
This is just planning right now. We're going to do the planning. The design budget is set up in the original proposal so that some of these budgets, these other ones, right away, different things, sometimes can be much bigger or smaller. And so we've got, the design budget is kind of a pot that we either pull from, or if we have more money, we bring it into. The design budget's not enough to design 100% of all these ready to go out construction, but it's going to get pretty close, unless we have to move some of that money to help out. Maybe environmental is going to take significant more efforts and things like that. We just don't know. So that's kind of the nice thing about the planning grant. The state's very comfortable with moving things from one budget to another, as long as the total doesn't change.
Can I ask you a
Sure.
question, just clarification? And I realize that I'm asking you ahead of, but there's a lot of right-of-way, acquisitions. Is this an area that you expect to, the city's going to have some right-of-way acquisitions?
We have not gotten our surveyors up there yet to kind of lay out where they found property corners and lay out where everything is. I have been told that the existing roads are in the middle of parcels, and where the existing right-of-way, according to the paper world, is where nobody drives. Which means that we've got to figure out, can we put the utilities in the right of way, which is where we want them. But I was also told that that creek that flows all the time, that the right of way where the road on paper is like on the bank of it. That's why nobody drives there, they drive in the middle of parcels. So that's one of the questions we're gonna have to figure out. We're gonna have to figure out, are we gonna have to acquire right of way without encumbering these parcels so people can't build? And yet, make sure we get through the environmental hurdles of not being too close to that creek. It's one of our concerns, but I don't have details quite yet. Get the survey going and where we can start to dial in where things really are out there. And then I have a better idea. Driving it, I could tell where the right of way is supposed to be according to the deed maps I've seen. So I gotta wait until we get the survey where we get the idea. So, the next one is, north, I think it's north downtown.
Next slide.
Yeah, the next slide. And it's just a small portion, there's a section, this is on River Avenue, towards the, I guess I'll call it the south end of it. Its pipe's in terrible condition and probably leaks a lot, but under that road is cobbles that goes right into the river, so if it's leaking water, nobody knows. So we're looking to replace that section, and then it crosses the bridge on the river, and that was put in size-wise fine, but going under the railroad tracks, I think it goes down to like a 4-inch. And we need, it's small, I know that.
Small.
And so that is part of the improvements, is that we will upsize that to, I don't know yet, we'll have to see 6, 8, 10 to make it so that don't have to deal with that in the future. Okay. The next slide is downtown, or central Dunsmuir improvements. Quite a bit going on here, just for your understanding. We'll start at the top and work down. This is changed from the master plan, just to let you know, and I'll explain the differences and why here in a second. Starting up by the high school, you see the red line there. That actually is going to have to be constructed with the downtown water tank project. That line has major leak problems already, and when the downtown water tank gets put in, it's going to raise PSI about 20 PSI, I believe, because we're lifting, we're raising the location of the tank. And city staff, Ron and Dennis, are pretty sure that pipe is going to just rupture with the extra pressure. So that portion is actually going to get put into the construction grant request for the downtown tank. Okay. Over on the right and up on the top is a new section that was not in the master plan. And I'll explain a little further why. But mostly in the last year, the Sacramento Avenue part, basically that line, you can't see the street, coming down Willow. We put the new big main up Willow Avenue under the freeway and up to where the tank will tie into it. Okay, it goes down to Shasta Avenue right now. We're gonna go and take a large main, 10 or 12 inch probably, we don't know for sure yet, from that connection point at Willow and Shasta, run it down through Dunsmuir Avenue and tie into the big main in Dunsmuir Avenue, continue down to Sacramento, and then down to, I think it's Spruce. At that point, the Sacramento line goes up to 8 inch, okay, and it can handle the capacity. That stretch on Sacramento Avenue we have in the red there, the city's crew have been out there at least twice a month fixing leaks. The pipe is falling apart on them. And so we have moved that into something that needs to be done soon. Because we're gonna make it so large, it's gonna solve another one of our issues. One of the big water things we've been trying to do in the previous projects, the Blackberry Hill, Butterfly Avenue projects, were to try to raise the water pressure and flow on the east side of the river, on the south part of Dunsmuir, because anybody that knows people that live up in that area, if they pop the hydrant down near the river, everybody up top ran out of water, which is a major health problem for your system. So we've made upgrades, but we still have two bottlenecks in the system, and that's crossing the bridges on the river. okay? And trying to get at least 8-inch lines to go through there. Right now, there's 4-inch bottleneck. So going down Sacramento Avenue and tying into the 8 with at least an 8, we'll go all the way down to Butterfly Avenue, and go across the Butterfly Bridge with at least an 8-inch flow. Hopefully, that bridge's replacement will get put back on the docket. It sounded like a year or 2 years ago it was gonna be done, and now, who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah, but hopefully it will, because that needs to get sized up. We replaced all of the first part of Butterfly Avenue, and then you see the other red, that goes all the way down to Gillis. And we replaced from Gillis down. So now, once we put that new line in, we'll have 8-inch main coming all the way down from on the north side of the east side of the river. And then we'll also have from Shearer Avenue on the west side, I'll call it, coming across the river, another 8-inch main. Right now, they're bottlenecked by 4-inch or 6-inch at some point all the way through. And so even though the pressure now is enough that people up on the top of Blackberry Hill streets can go and have 3 or 4 homes have showers at the same time without running out of water, still don't have enough, they don't have enough capacity getting to them that if we pop 2 hydrants open because there's a fire down on the bottom in 3rd Street or something, they're gonna run out of water. And we need to try to get it so that doesn't happen. So that's what a lot of this is, the stuff on Snow Alley, Brandstetter, the little red there going down to Shearer Avenue. That's all to make all of that at least 8-inch. So that way, we've already put in Shearer Avenue as that previous project, 8-inch line. So the whole thing will all have 8-inch minimum mains going all through the system to carry the fire flow.
And no more bottlenecks.
That's what we're at. We're trying to eliminate every bottleneck we can find. The issue still will be Shearer Avenue Bridge and Butterfly Bridge. Those will still be the bottlenecks.
For now.
For now, I don't remember Shearer Avenue. I want to say it's a 6-inch crossing, and I want to say Butterfly is a 6-inch. And we know we want to make them 8 or 10. It's just like going under the tracks. When we're going under the tracks, I make them at least a size or 2 larger than we think, because we never want to have to come back and deal with the railroad or crossing the river in the next 50 years. So that's just kind of the way I envision things. So those sections will be larger, and then we reduce down to what we need.
One quick question I have.
Sure.
I don't know where it's fallen on the priority list, or if it's just not known, but in between Brandstetter and Wood Street, there's a small stretch where I know the city guys have been there a couple times this past few months or so. And today I was walking and I saw there's a new fracture there, I think where water's coming up. Do you know where that falls on the replacement and planning spectrum?
I believe that is in the near term
Okay.
improvements. I think that whole Woods Avenue area is part of the near term. I know that's a high priority in sewer improvement also. That whole section is gonna get reworked, but they're a little behind these. Most of this is a combination of maintenance, but trying to get flow, fire flow, and proper pressure capacity to everybody, especially people on the east side of the river that are up ways. Because it's a health hazard, frankly. You can't go to zero, you can't go to negative pressure and pull something down people's pipes theoretically into the system, because now you contaminate possibly the whole system.
Right.
And you guys, along with the other 3 communities here on the mountain, are the only luxury and fortunate ones that don't have a chlorinated system. But of course, if it ever gets reverse contaminated, then you got a real problem. Because you don't chlorine, so.
Just,
Sure. Oh.
I'm sorry, just a quick follow-up. You said that section right there falls into the near term.
Yes, that I believe is on that near-term list from the master plan.
And near term is not immediate. In other words, it's.
The idea is to have it done by 2022.
Yeah.
So, and I envision, I envision this next proposition passing, I envision grant money, because you guys are severely disadvantaged, being available for the next 6-8 years for construction. I really envision that. So I think probably in near term, we can do that and possibly make it where reevaluate rates and stuff, because I know you had the big rate increases we thought. We didn't know that these grants were going to be available when that was going on. If we get 4 or 5 years down the road and we're continuing to get grants to carry most of that cost, we would then want to, and I already talked to Paul about it, he wants to revisit those rates, drop back down. If we don't need them to pay low interest loans for 30 years
Yeah.
to do the improvements.
Or at least be able to not have to implement more increases, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So right now, we're kind of playing with house money, if you want to think of it that way, and so we just want to take advantage of it as much as we can and help your residents not have to, foot as big of a bill on so much of this stuff. You got treatment plant costs, coming up over the next few years, and so we can get all that taken care of with the grant also.
Well, we're on the subject, I would like to emphasize for anybody out there that has been concerned about we've raised these rates and what's going on with them. We are looking right now, like we just found, for grants as they come along that will address or adopt our plan. And we can look down the line, like you said, and say, we won't do this year's increase because we don't need it because we've got grants. So the whole idea of raising the rates when we did it was so that we would be in the position down the line to be able to do what we needed to, recognize when we cut back, we didn't get the grants, right?
Yeah.
So make it clear to the people out there that that's where we are in this process.
Right.
I have a question. I don't know whether I heard you wrong, right or not. You were talking about Scherer Avenue?
Share revenue? Yes.
Yeah, it's just crossing underneath the railroad line, right? Because Scherer Avenue doesn't cross the river.
Well, I call it Sheer Avenue Bridge. It's right at the very bottom of the figure there.
Yeah, there's no bridge. It's called Scherer Avenue. Are you talking about the?
Well,
Just
Bridge
the
Street.
The street.
I've always heard Sheer Avenue Bridge is what
I
I've
know, it
heard.
confuses the hell out of me.
Oh,
I don't.
okay.
There is a bridge later down Share, but where it crosses the railroad tracks, it's just right.
Oh, yeah, where Sheer Avenue
Yeah.
crosses the railroad tracks, we've already installed
I
that.
know, last year.
Right, so the bottleneck, well, that I can reach up there.
It's
The
happening.
bottleneck is
before
right down here, crossing the river. So,
Right.
all the way
Right.
up there, all
South
of that's been replaced with a large size pipe.
Where it goes into south
But
section.
right where the bridge is right there, that's
Yeah.
where we had to tie in
So
that
that's
down.
what you're calling the Scherer Bridge?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Which it's not, the locals don't call it that.
South second.
No, it's called the,
If I'm not mistaken, that's Butterfly on the far right,
Yes,
and then up just to the left where it says downtown water main replacement, there's an arrow pointing to the very end of it. That's the Share crossing at the railroad tracks.
yes, correct. It's prior to the railroad tracks.
Yes.
Because
it's
we
on the
already
west
got
side.
under it. Yeah, so we're just gonna tie in, basically, just so you know, you have an 8-inch main in Dunsmuir Avenue, that's the main carrier, we have north-south. We're trying to make it so it's not the only one, but it ends just past the pizza parlor, which it ends and it's neck down to, I think, 4-inch. And then it goes down about a half block and then ties into these other lines. Well,
That's
when we
Pine
did-
Street.
What's that?
Pine Street.
Well, it's in Dunsmuir Avenue, it just all of a sudden necks down, for whatever reason, they ran it kind of the end of some of the businesses as an 8-inch, and then they necked it down, I think it took 4, and it runs down to Oak Street, and then continues on down Dunsmuir Avenue in that small size. So in that South Dunsmuir water project 2 years ago, we replaced the block of Oak Street to the west of Dunsmuir Avenue. We had good enough money, and they were having enough leak problems in that intersection. We ran the main all the way down to Snow Alley with an 8-inch. So this is gonna go and run about 200 feet and tie the end of that 8-inch Dunsmuir Avenue down to Oak Street. We already have the valve set up for it and everything when we did that work, and then we'll dig down Snow Alley to Brandstetter, and then that half block out Sheer, and then down towards the tracks where we ended our other line. And that way, everything will be an 8-inch all the way, rather than going through these 4-inch mains that's happening right now when you go down to the south that way. Does that kind of
Yes.
answer those questions? A lot kind of going on. The original master plan showed, and I know this because one of my first jobs here was I was the field inspector for when we widened Sacramento Avenue from Brandstetter to Butterfly. I don't know if didn't sleep for weeks because the contractor he ended up having to go 6 days a week, 12 hours a day with hammers, remember that, whole town shaking, trying to break all that rock out. There's no way you're gonna dig a water trench over that hump. So that's another reason why we're coming in from Willow Avenue on the north end to try to get water to Butterfly Avenue with a bigger size pipe. But if you look at the master plan, if you look at the master plan, they didn't have that. They showed it going across Sacramento Avenue from Brand Center to Butterfly, but there's just no way that could ever get built. So, yes?
But that's going across the Butterfly Bridge.
Yes.
What is carrying, I mean, what size pipe is now carrying water down to Butterfly Avenue?
I think it's 6 inch in the bridge. I think it's
Yeah.
6 inch in both Butterfly and then what I was calling the Shearer Bridge. Those two, which are going to end up being the bottlenecks. But we're making the pipes on both sides 8 inch or bigger.
So
Okay?
eventually that will also be,
And then eventually those will get, like I said, it looked like the Butterfly Bridge was gonna be in the middle of getting replaced right now, and I guess that's fallen off the map. 2 years ago, when we were doing the water project, they were out there surveying, the state or whoever was doing the design, were out there surveying and everything, so.
Yeah, it's been pushed out.
But it's still on the list, so.
One more section to look at, right?
Yeah, and the last one is just, areas very south end of town that's got some, it's got some small lines, 2 inch, 4 inch lines serving multiple homes, and a lot of them are dead ends, so there's no looping. So we're gonna try to make loops, we're gonna get them to 6 or 8 inch, so that you have the proper fire flow there, and would meet code. So the south end's a little cleaner in the sense of what we're trying to do on it. The other ones are more, trying to get water from the tank across the river, basically, in east of Bowling. So those are the parameters of what we're gonna be trying to do an environmental review of, doing basic design, getting the right-of-way if we need any right-of-way and so on. The schedule we're looking at, if we get authorization to proceed tonight, we're looking to try to have our design surveys completed by March. These are flexible schedules. Part of the reason we gotta go and be flexible there is if you guys get snow, Farmers Almanac says January, February are gonna be colder and wetter than normal, so if you get snow on the ground for any amount of time, you can't survey. So that can delay the process. As soon as we get the surveys, we can start on the basic design. We'll be doing an engineering project report. That's what the SRF funding calls it. Really, it's a preliminary engineering report with extra stuff that they want for the construction application. But we think we can have that completed by March. At some point in March, then we would submit the construction funding app. Our goal at this point is May, even though the environmental and permitting, I think we have set as July probably when the final, hopefully adopted environmental report would be complete. We get, just so you understand the process, you send the app in, and they'll take weeks and weeks calling us up and saying, hey, you know what, we need this, or we want that, and there's all this extra stuff they always seem to want. So we've learned, get the application in early. They will not start the final review for agreement and funds, but we can make sure we have all of these little I's dotted and T's crossed, and when we get the environmental complete, like I said, hopefully there won't be any major delays, which will probably be in July. At that point, then we get slotted in the state list of projects that they're looking at funding for construction. Okay, and the complete design will finish up. That doesn't have to be completed prior to them approving the construction funds. Our goal would be that sometime in October to be complete with that. How much overage or underage there is in the other budgets determine how complete those designs will be, whether they're 60%, 90%, it just matters how much, time and money that we have available in the end. And then all of the planning tasks have to be completed before they will give the final funding approval for construction funds. So we want to make sure that everything is done by January. Okay? Just so you guys are aware, stuff that can be related, that is staff hours on this, are reimbursable, okay? So we'll be communicating a lot as we're starting to go down this. I've already talked to Dennis, who's gone out and done a lot of USA locate painting marks for the surveyors to come in to make sure he's keep track of that time, so that a lot of it was for the sewer project, but they'll be doing it for the water project. Keep track of those hours, and the grant will pay those, so the city doesn't have to pay this time. Yes?
Supposing everything is, goes without too many hitches, or you're able to, meet your schedule, when would you think construction would start?
I would really like to think the summer of 2019, but as you saw, we started the grant application in March of 2016. We finally got approval 18 months later in October of 17. No promises. I don't know. They continually are changing things down there. They streamlined a few things. I've been told they're thinking 6 months review for construction apps. Now, if you already have a plan, a lot of the financial stuff they look for, we already provided the planning grant application stuff. So that's why we would hope to be able to have construction starting in summer of 2019. If there's environmental issues that delay this and make it an 8-9 month year process, then that of course blows all that up. There's some other issues that could come along and make it to 2020. But I don't see any way that we're not having your street store up by construction in 2020.
Any other questions from the council?
Yeah, that's it. Questions, council, or?
I'll open the podium for public comment. No public comment? Thank you. Any comments from the councilors?
Just one comment. I wanted to maybe, should get it done, but I was looking at we have a little app that shows what the hydrant situations are like and what the water flow is. On the last page, we go from almost 1,400 gallons per minute. Near Manfred's, it drops down to 451 gallons a minute. So this would be a critical item for the fire department, especially if there's a fire there. So let's do it. Let's get it done.
So I understand that the two areas that are critical right now as far as fire support are the elementary school and then the water tank itself, right? Downtown high school.
High school.
High school also?
Yeah, it's,
That's what downtown.
they're all kind of staged things. The portion that we talked about being replaced on Willow Avenue, from where the tank's gonna come in to the high school, it's only 300-400 feet. That is to keep that old bad line from rupturing when the pressure increases. Talking with Dennis and Ron, one of the near-term improvements is actually improving the piping to the high school from the street. There's issues there too, but we don't have money for that right now. The tank's the most critical thing to give you guys some capacity to handle multi-structure fire and not drain your capacity, as well as, especially on the east side of the river, raising that tank is going to allow pressure on the other side of the river and volume to get over there. Even with all the improvements, we still have bottlenecks. I believe that if they open 2 fire hydrants down on 1st Street, 2nd Street area, people up on the top will run out of water. They won't have any water. And that's just because those bottlenecks trying to get the water over there from the spring tank on the west side of the river over to the east side are still there. So that's a lot of what we're looking at. And I do know down on the Manfred's end of everything is a problem. There's several bottlenecks that go through 4-inch lines, and you're just not going to get very much closer to a 4-inch line. Not close to what current code is, for sure.
So before we move on with, I just want one critical question I think here. If we did have a fire, a small one where you said, and the water did disappear for the people up the way, is there some process we then would know that we need to go through and test to see if there's been any sort of a contamination from the fact that we had the backflow?
There's typically pressure monitoring that happens throughout the city. I'd have to talk to operations to find out where throughout the city they put these pressures, sensors. One is at City Hall, where they set up, usually on a fire hydrant, a graph that would monitor these pressures. And if there's an area that they see that will drop below pressure, a minimum pressure level, then it's something we'd have to address. So it's really a pressure issue. If you drop down to a certain amount of pressure, that could potentially create a problem where you can cause things outside to come in.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'm convinced, and I want to thank you for your dedication and your time, sir. I'd like to make
Okay,
a
can
motion.
I ask a question?
This shot, ask a question.
This has nothing to do with what is on the, but do you know where we are with the water replacement tank?
The tank, I'm not in charge of that project, but I kind of know what's going on with it. We're in the process of designing it. We've got the survey done, the surveyor's coming back. There's certain things that have kind of gotten added into it. For example, we've got to do some improvements up at the spring. And in fact, actually, I didn't even mention that on this planning grant. I'm glad you brought it up because I should mention it. But right now, you have a weir building up there. I don't know if any of you have ever been there, but the water comes out of the different springs and pipes, goes into this weir building, and then it goes down out the bottom of this building is your 18-inch main that runs all the way down to town, okay? All the water that doesn't go into that 18-inch main because there's more water coming in, especially when you had the real wet winter this year. It goes over where and then flows down and actually helps create Mossbury Falls because it goes out downhill and runs out. The problem is the new tank is going to raise up, and we at least are designing it so that it will still release some water. But see, right now your tank automatically releases any extra water,
Which flows under downtown.
which flows through that little creek that goes down through downtown. We've been told for fishing game they want to keep that going, they want to reduce the amount. Okay, well, that's fine, except that means there's more water going to go over that weir in the building. And this winter, or this spring, the flow was so high, Dennis and Ron took us up there and said, we got to redesign this weir so it can handle more water. Because if the tank's not going to allow as much overflow, we're going to have more here and it won't handle it. So that's something that we just had our surveyors come up and do a scan. It's called a scan survey where it does 3D. So like set up the scanner here and it surveys the whole building. Because those pipes, if you've ever been there, they're really ondulated. And it's a rock wall with a cave going back in and all that. And so we're on the process of we got to get that designed as well as the tank, as well as a couple of these other places. There's supervisory valve that's got to go in. We've got 2 PRVs that's got to go in when we do all of this. So they all have to kind of go in together. So the process is, I think, that we're supposed to get draft design to staff April, something like that, I think, as a draft design going review. So that's where we're at on that. Now, you did mention the spring. One of the things that came up when the state came up and reviewed your water system, they are part of getting this grant they wrote in is to look to start with a design to replace the pipes that are up there at the spring. And that is going to be extremely challenging. That's one of the reasons we have the surveyors go up there, kind of tie the 2 projects together. That will be part of this grant. That will be part of that design money, is to get some kind of a plan and figure out how to replace those pipes without shutting water off to the city. And that's going to be a challenge, because that's your only source of water. And those pipes, there's no width. If you've ever been up there, you can barely get a truck between the pipes and the edge of the cliff going down to the river. We got to get it in there. We got to set up some kind of temporary. It's going to be that's going to be a real challenge. But that will be probably a very basic design. Will be part of this planning grant.
This planning grant?
Yes, that planning grant. That was part of something that was added in by the state. The regulators told SRF, yeah, we want to fund this, but make sure that we put in there that you guys are gonna start on a preliminary design for replacement of those pipes there, so.
Any other questions?
No, can I make a motion?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to move to authorize the city manager to amend the city engineering service agreement with Pace Engineering number 204.40 with amendment number 2017-1. I'll second that motion.
Moved and seconded. Do we have any fiscal authorization with this?
It's already budgeted,
That's
but
what I thought.
we're just authorizing the city manager. So I
All in
don't-
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No opposed? Unanimous? Motion's carried. That wraps up our meeting. Anything for the next meeting? Anything to bring up here at the end before we adjourn?
It just, we've already had quite a bit on this topic, but while Keith is here, I'm just wondering if, we haven't actually talked about the intake there very much as a council in all of our water projects. So the first time it's come up, I'm just wondering if there's any issues of right of way there. I assume the city has an easement because that's outside the city limits. Does Pace or does the city have that documentation that we could put together an informational memo to the council at some point in terms of the city's access to that building, what the agreement is?
Probably in your.
Yeah.
It's in City Hall. It's in City Hall.
Have you seen it?
Yes, I have.
Okay, I looked for it. I won't
We
remember.
retained the rights back like 56. We retain the rights to the water. We can go there, monitor service. We have full access to those anytime we want to. But Brenda Dane showed it to me, so it is there. It's back in the day.
And hopefully it's something that's recorded on the deeds of the property, so if that's something we can't find, we'll have to go to the
I got something.
I
got something, Mari. Have you ever seen?
Yeah, I think that we got it as, when Paul was here. And I think he sent a memo to all of us.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't recall that, but
Have you ever seen where the water goes?
yeah,
Have you?
Yeah.
Have you?
the water
Have you?
source.
What was the question?
Have you
The water
seen
source.
where our
No,
water? No? I'd like to see if the city manager could arrange a
I
field
would love
trip.
to go and see.
I think that if we're gonna be dealing with and battling over our water, we should all see and know where it comes from.
Yeah,
Can you make that happen?
I'll talk with the operations.
Thank you.
But I think I've seen the actual documents.
Once you see it for real with your eyes, you'll fight harder for it.
I've seen that.
I just want to make sure that I'd love to at some point see
As far as
the water right documentation as well as the access. to the property documentation. I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
I've seen, I've read the whole thing
Great.
before, and actually, it was John King who got it.
Okay,
Yeah, hopefully it's on the deed.
thank you.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Motion adjourned, second?
Hold on, did we ask if there was any future agenda items?
That's what I did, yes.
You did? I'm sorry, I don't, I just want to make sure you asked.
I did.
Thank you.
Josh, you have anything?
No, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Oh,
Thank you.
just
Thank
one
you very
thing.
much.
We should make sure that committee assignments get put on
Well, that's
the
right.
January 19th meeting.
If anyone has some changes they'd like to make, let me know. Let us know.
I don't, but we usually do that at the first meeting.
Adjourned.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.